here.
All right. So here we are live on a Monday, getting back on schedule. I got Jay with me, kind of the normal crowd. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me pull up as usual. What's good, everybody? Make sure y'all do the usual: like, subscribe, bell notification. Show Ty some love, man. It's always a good time for us to come in here and just hang out.
Yeah, and this was one of the times we actually got in the pre-show room on time, and we just kept talking about music before we ever hit play, and this is why we're
Yeah,
running 10 minutes late. But it's gonna
right.
be worth it, I promise you. I think Chris Griffin Hornsdown podcast and Jason of Hall of Fame Media will be joining us as well at some point. So it's gonna be a great time. But I think there's no better place to start than this, man. There's a lot of big recruiting over the weekend. Bama had their big event, multiple big events, but Oklahoma had a really key event because I think when you look at this, there are some positions of massive need. And I'll let you speak more to that. So, what are you hearing after this event?
So one of the big ones, we saw a couple crystal balls come down the line. You had running back Xavier Robinson out of Midwest City, Oklahoma. Literally, he goes to high school with my son.
Oh, that's sick.
Running back 6'2". He's listed at 6'2", 225. And Ty, I dropped a video probably just about 40 minutes ago on him, looking at his film and his picture with him next to DeMarco Murray. They're lying about the kid's size. He's not 6'2", 225. He's got to be at least 6'3", 6'4", 240. He's almost Derrick Henry size. And that's how terrifying the kid is. Watching him run, and I made this comparison. I said he reminds me of Derrick Henry, the young version of him. And this is why I said that. We know Derrick Henry's a freaking specimen. He is a alien. He's not real. When you see him on the field and what he does at his size. And I'm watching this film on him, and Ty, he's hitting the hole. He makes two cuts, and then he just outruns everybody. So his 40 time's not going to be big. He may run a 4.4. He may run a 4.5 at best, honestly.
Well, Ezekiel Elliott ran a 4.53.
Just
4.51, yeah.
Derrick Henry ran a 4.54. So I'm thinking
4.5 is moving. Yeah.
But at that size, it doesn't look like it, which is weird. Of course, we're so used to the 4.3s, 4.4s. You can tell the difference. He doesn't have the initial acceleration, but once he hits the hole, he's gone. Like, he's gone. And This is wild to me, is that he's a 3-star recruit and nobody's really picked up on him. He ran for 2,500 yards last year. I'm just in amazement to see that. So he's one big one. And then the next crystal ball that came down the line was Williams and Winery up in Lee Summit, Missouri. Parker Thune at 24/7 dropped the crystal ball on him. And Williams is similar to PJ Adebayo. Big, strong guy that's very low-key. And because he's so low-key, you won't hear too much about him in his recruiting. I know that
he's a bit of a tweener as well.
Yeah.
You don't know whether he's going to play edge or interior. He's got the ability to do both. It's just, what do you need?
And he has the frame to add those
both.
pounds.
Yeah.
Exactly. He has that frame that you can tell that, you just put him in the right program, he'll put on 20, 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And he'll do it. And so he had Oklahoma, Colorado, and I can't think of the third team right now, but this was in February. He had named his top 3. And so because of that, Oklahoma has a very good chance of winning. This is a Miguel Chavis special. This is him going out there as a young recruiter, winning potentially the second time that he's winning the best player out of Missouri. And I'm impressed if he's able to pull this off. Like, I think it's going to happen. I can totally see it. I can see an actual commitment within the next 2 months. And then we don't hear from Nwaneri for the rest of the year up until signing day, just like we did out of Byway. So besides that, there was over 20 recruits that were in town. You had a bunch of 5-stars. Kobe Black posted a picture as a corner. You saw Travarius Banks out of Alabama, safety, 4-star. There was a lot of big-name players that pulled up. So I'm pretty stoked that they were able to put together such a beautiful event that's needed to really help the fan base, Oklahoma fans, calm it down and understand that this is a full-fledged process.
Absolutely. Getting some comments. SBC, thank you for the $4.99. He says, thanks for the content. As always, thank you for being here. Quick question. Chris always talks about his uncle. Who is his uncle? I actually don't know. I've never asked him.
I've never asked either. I think he's around in the comments here. I think he pulls up often. So, Unc, if you hear Give us a name.
Yeah. If not, when he pulls up, I'll ask him. Hank says he agrees with you on the Henry comp. Michael Willis says, how deep are the Sooners at center? We're going to talk about that. That's an interesting one, Michael. I'd love to
That's a good
jump into
question.
that.
Yeah.
Wesley says, if you have 5 players on Bama's roster to have the best chance to be taken in the first round next year, who would it be? Ooh, that's that's going to be one. We'll dive into this one as well. I'm starring that. Benjamin Boomer Sooner, thank you for being here. Hank says Wilt Fong was just talking about him and the trips he was planning, but is thinking OU is the team to beat for him. Yeah. Nwaneri is being pushed very hard by Oklahoma. I think out of all the teams, Oklahoma, Colorado, they're pushing probably harder than anybody for him right now, and deservedly so. Very, very gifted prospect. And I think whenever we look, Brent Venables really likes those kind of tweeners, right? Where you don't know whether you can play him at edge or whether you can play him interior. And when I say tweener, it's not like
not derogatory.
When I say that, it's not like he only can do one or the other. No, he has the ability to do both. So if you have a great class signing interior guys, you could say, okay, we're going to put you at edge. If you hit on some edge guys and you're like, okay, we could use another interior guy, you can slide him inside and be real good. That I think is going to be really interesting. But Wesley, 5 players from Bama that could be a first rounder. Okay. JC Latham on the offensive line. All right. Dallas Turner on the edge. There's 2. Whew.
Yeah.
But the thing is there's so many young. There's so many young guys. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
When I think about Bama, I'm thinking right now, you all have a lot of young players that aren't eligible for next year's draft. That would probably be some first round materials. But that's a tough question. That's a tough one right now.
So right now I got 2. Roster. Dallas Turner and JC Latham, I think are really Latham is every game I watch of him, he's getting better and better and better. And if that continues, I believe it will under Coach Wolford. I loved the addition of Coach Wolford coming from Kentucky. Everywhere he's been, you can chart a statistical improvement. And I think he's going to continue that at Alabama. It needs to continue. That offensive line must get better, especially without Bryce. Defensively, I think Dallas Turner is probably your safest bet as to, okay, you have 1 first-round pick on Bama. Who's it going to be? Ty Dallas Turner has got to be the name. The next name for number 3 has got to be Quincy McKinstry, right? Kool-Aid.
Yeah, so, I was about to ask.
Oh yeah, no. I'm just working my way from interior, exterior on both sides.
He was
of the ball.
name that I thought about first, and I know that there was some people had qualms with him in his performance this past season. I think that gets better down the line.
Even then, he's ranked as a top 10 cornerback. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. Like he really came on strong the back half of the season, but it's very obvious when you watch him play. He had some pass interference penalties. If that can get cleaned up a bit more.
Silly ones too. That was probably what it is in some people's thoughts.
And it's kind of tough, man, because we've talked about this before. Saban teaches them to play the hands.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
so you're more prone to pass interference penalties because a lot of teams in college say play ball, and then when you get to the NFL, it's play hands. But Saban says from college, play hands. And I think that I actually have a little interesting theory on this, Jay. I think that's why we see so many pass interference from the Bama secondary.
I can see that. Oh no, and that makes sense. And to add to that, it's because sometimes they jump the gun on going to the hands.
Yes.
And it's a really tough thing to do and a really tough concept to learn at this level. And it's more so not that they're not talented enough. They're still young and they're still developing. That's what makes it so tough. Now, the ones that figure it out early, you see some monsters be able to do it. But yeah, with your younger players, man, it's hard to not. As soon as you see the hands do this and you swipe at it, thinking the ball's right there, that gets you every single time. And it's about timing and just waiting and getting your hand ready to just cock back while running full speed. So as soon as that hand flips over and the ball's close, you knock it out. It's tough. It's hard. And that's the reason why Bama corners are typically better than most.
And I love this point you make because now we're getting into the weeds with wide receiver.
Yeah.
And this is a great point, guys. Jay makes a fantastic point here, and he just put everybody on some game. If you're watching wide receivers, if you want to know, hey, what wide receiver is going to be one that draft experts love, watch how they catch the ball. What I mean is if they're running a fade, does your wide receiver do this and then run for 2 steps? Or does he wait until the ball is right here and then flash his hands up? Because the guys who wait the longest, those are the ones who are going in the first round.
Yep.
Because you cannot play the hands, right? That's the
Yes.
exact point of what you're saying, Jay. And I love that you said that because it really paints the picture of why.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a freshman corner going up against a very talented junior wide receiver. That junior wide receiver waits until last moment to flash hands. So that freshman's already attacking him, right?
Yep.
Flag.
Exactly.
It's a real tough concept. Now, Wes, this is a really good one, man. I'm not going to lie. You might catch some flack for this one just because he hasn't played it down yet of D1, but I am actually with you. I am actually 100% with you. Malik Benson was the #1 JUCO player in the nation.
Yep.
And reports are, man, that whenever he was working out with the Tide, they think he's going to be a really, really big piece to this offense. So Wesley, look, I actually, man, I think it could be. It very well could be. I think for the running backs, I think Jace, I love Jace. He would have needed a bigger sophomore and junior campaign. And unfortunately, he got injured both of those years. That's going to be tough. I think an NFL team is going to get a great pick with Jace, though. So yeah, we're at 4 between JC, Dallas, Kool-Aid, and I give you Malik Benson. The 5th is interesting. If Deontay Lawson has a super big year, he's a junior, I believe, right? Or is he? Yeah, he's a junior this year.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to come out though. I think he'll play 2 years. Your corners, Terrian's not going to come out. I think he'll probably take the time.
Who's from the 2020 class that
there's
goes
not a
the
lot
yard?
of eligible guys this year that I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. If Deontay Lawson balls out and gets that first round grade, he'll go. But like that's a big if. You know what I mean? That's a really big if because he just doesn't have that game film. He's got all the ability. God, Jay, I'm so excited for Deontay Lawson to play. I'm
pretty stoked to
man.
see him as well. I'm pretty stoked to see him as well. And even in talking about him, there's a lot of potential coming from that. So, man, that's an interesting
that's an interesting
exercise to do.
That's a great question, Wesley. That is, I'm determined to get you this 5th. I'm determined to get you the 5th.
We have to come back to line on that one. But no, I kind of want to make mention of this when it comes to the draft too. And I think it's funny because in talking about that, as you mentioned with the wide receivers and looking at the corners or whatnot, that's why I tell people when there's draft evaluations and you scratch your head about what the hell people are seeing in these players, it's stuff like that that you don't notice. Like we talked about this real quick, the Anthony Richardson love. There's a reason why it exists.
No doubt.
And he's going to end up getting a GM potentially either fired or promoted, but it's more so, and we talked about this, I think, on the other live stream or whatnot. It's more of his biggest piece is they talk about his pocket presence and how calm he is in the pocket. And that's something very hard to do. It's like they said he's Bryce Young without the accuracy.
Now, his pocket, you know why he's so cool in the pocket, though. I mean, I can tell you why he's so cool in the pocket. It's because he is so supremely athletically gifted. He's not worried about you. You know,
that's my point.
He's
so
not
many players can't do that. But so many players
True.
can't even do that. Even being supremely talented, they can't. And so that's the difference in the NFL's view of a player when they're scouting in comparison to what. And that's why he had a great combine. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is exactly what they were thinking could potentially happen." Now, the other thing is a lot of GMs and coaches understand that just because you see a bunch of greatness out of him in the combine don't mean it's going to show up, or even in college football doesn't mean it's going to show up on the field. The question's going to be what the coaching looks like. If they put together a good development plan for him, he could probably be an elite NFL player. And the next question is what his work ethic looks like. We'll find that out later. But right now, he's just supremely athletic, and that's kind of one of the pieces. But at wide receivers, yeah, like as we were talking about, man, it's how fast do you flash him, and how do you make the defense stay honest on what they're doing? If you can make those DBs swat at you a little earlier, in some capacity. Like you can give them a quick
Yeah.
flash and it come back. Oh my God, flags every time. And that's what you do. That's what you see. That's why you see those underthrown passes too.
Yup.
Is that when you know that the defense is going to be super aggressive, underthrow that thing so the wide receiver has to come back and get the PI because they're not watching the ball. They're probably playing the hands,
Especially
or
if
they're
they're in
watching the ball
trail.
too late. Right.
Especially if you know they're in trail.
Yep. Take
Put it on the
advantage of
back
that.
should. Yep. And
Unless you know you're going to burn them, unless you know your receiver's going to burn them, yes, you go for that. Back shoulder, get that flag. So yeah, good
easy
point.
peasy. Love that. Wesley with another, thank you for another donation, man. He says, but 2 backs will be close to 1,000 yards with Reese calling offense, Jace and Williams. Well, look, I completely agree with you that I think Bama's rushing attack will be better. My only concern, though, is twofold, Wesley, and I'm sure you'll get this. One, the NFL and these NFL scouts look for any reason they can to devalue the running back. So it's already so difficult to be taken in the first round as a running back anyways. And Jace, as talented as he is, and I think he is going to be a great player, man, he has the injury concern where it's 2 years where he had an injury. He had the injury in high school. He's an NFL player. There is no question about that. Jace is going to be a really solid NFL player. But that's the only hesitancy I have with throwing him up there. It's nothing to do with Jace. It's the way the NFL devalues the running back position. They look for any reason they can to draft the running backs in the 3rd round, the 4th round.
You want to pay them less because they're quote unquote they're more dispensable.
Yes.
So yeah, yes.
That's nothing to do with Jace and them. That's look, you know where we're at when Bijan, right? You have people being like, "Oh, is Bijan a first rounder?" Talent-wise, that's a top 32 player in the draft. But because he's a running back, there are going to be people try and devalue him. Now, granted, if you let Bijan slip into the 2nd round, I got some real great Ocean View property in Nebraska. If you need it, hit me up. So no, the 5th one, Wesley, I'm stuck between 2, man. Ja'Cory Brooks would have to have a mega season. He would have to have just a mega season, but it could happen. He would have to go well over 1,000. He would have to go well over 1,000. Roadrunner was in here last week, absolutely cracking me up. Oh my goodness. Eric, thank you for joining in, man. Hope you've been good. Your Ducks really excited to see the direction they go. The player that I would say, and then I'll let you go, Jay. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're good. You're good.
Because this is a fun question for me. The player who I think has the player who I think could have, if they didn't get injured, is a Boygby. If a Boygby would have gotten to play all last season and then would have been eligible for coming back, I think if he could have stacked those 2 years, he could have been a 1st round pick. But the NFL, man, you already know they're going to try and say something about that neck injury to try and get him to slip. That way they can get a better deal. Man, these NFL scouts, it's kind of a nasty business because it's part of their job to devalue picks so that way they can get picks at a more advantageous position.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you thinking, man? I've given my possible few. I think I feel real solid about 4 of them. 3 to 4 of them, I'm like, yeah, I'm real solid with this. Some of them would need a real big season.
And that's where I'm at with it. The unfortunate thing for the running backs is unless you're running for over 2,000 yards by yourself, you're probably not going to be looked at it.
Well, look at Eric Gray. Eric Gray had almost 1,600 yards, and I don't think I've seen him mocked anywhere above the 3rd.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's just as you kind of said, the devaluing of the running back. And unless you're a true specimen, like Eric Gray's a really good serviceable running back. And I think he'll do well in the NFL, but he's not going to be somebody that he's going to have to get the opportunity and practice at the NFL in order for the chance to come through. And teams run through running backs all the time. I mean, hell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire went to the Chiefs, was there for the Super Bowl, was killing it, and he got replaced. And it happens often. It happens so often. That's kind of the reason why you kind of running backs, unless you put up an absurd season on a really good team, you're probably going to get overlooked, unfortunately. And some people think that you're probably worn down. But outside of that, looking at the Alabama roster, I was going through some of the classes and stuff and looking at the players, man. That fifth one, like you said, it's got to be someone that's going to have an absurd season.
Big season.
Maybe on the offensive line. Maybe someone from the line can pull it, but
I'll tell you the name that if they would have not gotten injured, almost like in a Boygby, I think would be very safe. Malachi Moore. He came onto the scene his freshman year and was sensational, had the back injury, which sidelined him for his sophomore and subsequently his junior year. Because, look, this is one of the harsh realities about Alabama. You can be a 5-star. If you get hurt, there may well be another 5-star right behind you, and now you got to beat them out. And him and Brian Branch were already fighting for that job when they first got there. So Moore gets hurt, in comes Brian Branch. It's going to be tough to win the job over that dude. He was real solid for that Bama defense. So Malachi Moore, if he puts something together, he has the film from his freshman year. But that fifth one, Wes, that's going to be fun. And you said right here about Jamarian Miller. I don't know if he's draft eligible. Chris, did you send Jason the link?
Yeah, I did. I sent it to him. I texted
Chris,
him.
we got a question. That popped up here in the chat, and we need to know an answer from you. Who's your uncle?
my uncle Tristan. That I know that's what a lot of people have been wondering. But yeah, his name is Tristan. So that's who I talk to mostly about everything. He keeps me updated with everything. We constantly talking OU all throughout the day, trying to figure out how to win this championship, man. Chase for 8 is great, bro.
Look at you in that vest too, looking all sharp. Got us just upstaging us as usual.
Look,
coming fresh from the job.
I have a thing. I need to get this out. Okay, I need to get this out. Ty, I don't know if I could believe anything else about Alabama. I mean, lying about these heights and everything. I mean, y'all, height gate at the combine it's crazy, man. Come on, man. Y'all are like giving everybody 2, 3. I saw one dude. Jameer Gibbs might as well have been 6'6" on his height chart at Alabama. I mean,
he was listed at 5'10" at Alabama.
He was listed. Hey, they said 5'11". The graphic I saw said 5'11". Y'all giving people all this height, man. I don't know where it's going.
Didn't y'all do the same thing with Kyler?
That's a lie.
Y'all listed him at 5'11" and 3/4, and he came in there barely 5'2".
I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying.
I think you.
That's fair though. That's fair. That's fair though.
Height gate was crazy.
Wesley.
I knew that he was going to come in here and start some mess. I knew it. That was exactly what I would expect it from
Wesley with another 5. He says, "I'd like to be able to chat with you in a personal messenger at some point. Any way we can make that possible, man. If you follow me on Twitter, all you got to do is shoot me a message, and all the guys here they can testify to it. If you want to talk football, I'm down to talk football. Follow me on Twitter, and absolutely, man, we can make it happen. We'll talk football." Jason, what's going on, my man?
What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Hey, it's the Hall of Fame media man. What up, Jason? Good to see you.
What's up, boys? How we doing?
We're talking OU Cruton.
That's what I'm talking about.
OU Cruton. Yep.
OU Cruton. I like it.
I love that you put Cruton in there too, Ty.
I don't know if you've noticed. I've done that like almost every time. It's just a Cruton.
Yeah, it cracks me up. I love it. I just love it. Every time I see it, it just makes me laugh. I'm just gonna say it that way.
No, so I think look, and I'm gonna go ahead and rip the bandage off. So y'all, I'm going in. Go ahead and get ready. Y'all's biggest need is interior defensive line on this recruiting class, and I don't necessarily know that it's just like we have to have it or it's an objective failure. But whenever you didn't land Hicks and you thought you would, and then you come into this class and David Stone is sitting in the position he is, and especially when Michigan State has not lost one key recruiter in his battle, they've now lost 2. The one that went to Georgia State and now the one that's going to Seattle. Michigan State, man, they've lost 2 real great recruiters that were really close with David Stone, and now y'all are in a real good position for Nwaneri. So I guess I kind of have answered the question for y'all, but talk to me about the interior defensive line recruiting and the importance of it. Chris, I'll start with you and then go to Jason, and then Jay, since Jay and I have been pontificating in here, waiting for y'all
for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
My fault. But no, look, I definitely wanted to jump on this one because this is something that I want to make a video about. Jason will definitely talk about this. But look, interior linemen on both sides of the ball, that's something that we need to address. These past couple of years, especially like on the offensive side of the ball, go that way, hasn't been as nasty as you would like. You haven't really had those maulers. Like, in my opinion, I think the Florida State game, what made me so excited was seeing Bird out there, seeing Savion Bird out there and seeing the potential that he has. Was he a little bit raw at times? Yeah. I mean, he hasn't had the playing time, but I mean, you get a guy like that has that, what I would consider first round talent, and the inside, you're going to be fine. But no, on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, we have to. I mean, we're banking on guys like Isaiah Cole, Jordan Kelly to really have big years this year, and we're hoping that you'll see an emergence out of either Grayson Halton, the Gilliam kid, or the Lacey kid from Notre Dame. I mean, you're banking on that, but let's not act like it's still not a sore spot that we didn't land DJ Hicks this year. That was supposed to be our guy that was going to come in this 23 season and really help solidify that position until help came on the way with potentially Winery, Stone. I mean, list goes on the kids that they're targeting and that they're, heavy favorites for. So it's a matter of importance. We have to get that, because going to the SEC, that's going to take us from potentially a tier 2 team, tier 1A team, to being a tier 1B, to being in that top tier teams.
Completely
because we haven't had a dominant inside lineman in quite a while. And so, it's time. It's past due.
Jason, what are you thinking, man? Oklahoma recruiting sitting in a real good spot for some of these interior guys. What excites you?
I like how many guys have them in their top amount. I mean, with Winery, I mean, it looks like I've been thinking that was a good one already. And then, I mean, finally, poor Todd Bates, man, he's been getting beaten up since, I remember one of the videos that you did last year where you were talking about when they didn't get the kid that ended up going to Ohio State. And Larry Johnson's the freaking,
he's the godfather of defensive line coaching in college football.
Yeah. And the thing is the whole deal with DJ Hicks. I mean,
well, and let's be honest,
2 bags of cash show up at his doorstep that day. What are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Regardless of how they got him, heavyweight recruiters, if you lose a battle to a heavyweight recruiting institution, which A&M is in the current landscape, you're going to lose those battles. Bama had Clemson walk right into their backyard and pull Peter Woods.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, nobody is infallible. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jason. It's just I wanted to drive home that point.
No, and that was how I felt about it anyways. I felt like, I did a video about it, that guys, because how Twitter is, it's a cesspool.
It's amazing.
You've got,
it's the worst.
There were people that were literally calling for the dude's head, and he was 2020 recruiter of the year. And I'm thinking, good grief, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? And in the end, I think that where they did miss, and I know that's something that we need to make sure that we're getting into this class. And obviously they've made it a big, all these targets, and every one of them are pretty much have Oklahoma right in their top 2 or 3 anyway. And, I was just about to pull up the list here real quick, but
yeah, I got them all pulled up, but yeah.
Let's see. No, not recruiter rankings. Team rankings. Here we go.
Roadrunner, you remind me of God. What's the? I don't know why I just forgot his name. Jay Billis. Every day. I don't know if you've been on Jay Billis's Twitter.
Yeah, every morning he drops a Jeezy quote.
He drops a Jeezy quote and then says, "But I gotta go to work."
Man. Love Jay Billis, man. He's the dude. He's the man. Yeah. So, yeah. So they're not even up there yet. So team rank. So okay. So, anyway, go ahead.
Oh no! Go ahead and finish your thought. No, because I had something to add to what you were.
No, my main thought was that obviously I was really glad to see that when they went and they got some of these guys out of the portal that are going to help you now, and that was one of the things that I felt like they didn't do enough of last year. I think that coming in and knowing how much, attrition there was really. You lost what, 45% of your players or something like that when you look at it. And a lot of them were on defense. There was at least 13 guys that were on, and we're not even talking about a good defense, but it was, 13 guys off of that depth chart. You needed to hit that portal a bit harder, I think, as far as those defensive guys that they didn't really take a chance on, and hoping that, they were going to get something out of these guys, and they just didn't. So I was really glad to see, more than anything, just from this past recruiting classes, that they did go ahead and try to fill those gaps, do the things that, you have to do to take the next step forward. I still felt like there was a couple of guys that they, obviously not getting DJ was kind of, but you got Champ Sanders, and I think that he's going to turn into something. I mean, he, if you saw the difference between his tape from his junior to his senior year, he was a different kid, and I think that, I really feel like he, 3-star or not, he's going to come in. He's going to make, probably not this season, but that's the good news about the portal, is that you got some guys that, what's the guy's name from Wake? I keep forgetting the dude's name. From Wake Forest.
Bothroyd.
That guy was a freaking Bothroyd. Yeah, that dude.
Yeah, Rondell Bothroyd is
freaking stud, man.
I forgot Chris was here.
He's a beast. He's just a straight beast. And I mean, this one that, when I started watching his film, and I watch a lot of, seems like I've seen a lot of Wake Forest over the last few years. And that guy is he just wrecks things for everybody. So
yeah,
I was glad to see it, man. I was glad to see that they went in and did that. And obviously, bringing in old boy from Notre Dame, and they just did a good job, man. And thankfully, the main targets that they got, and these are all guys that, something on your one of your videos from yesterday, Jay, that the guys were all talking about, well, I'm still waiting on these. And I was like, man, the reason that these guys ain't they're not making their decisions. These are high 4- and 5-star dudes that are going to wait till June and July. This is when, that's just when you get them, Yeah. So I'm not worried about what, remember last year that everybody was freaking out that they hadn't gotten anybody in June, and July hits, and next thing you know, they're in the freaking, top 5.
Yeah, kind of add to your thought on that. One of the things, Ty, for with that interior piece, like, okay, so last year we've got some players that look like they're more dogs than anything, and so it's a development piece. We can get there.
Sure.
We did hit the portal. I think Devon Sears is going to shock a lot of people when he goes.
Yeah, it's a good one.
He's already a big boy. He's strong. In his film, he was tossing dudes around at Baylor. When he was playing for Texas State. So he looks like he has the ability to do it. I forgot about Devon
Sears too for a minute. Yeah.
So you got him there in the interior. And then with the ones that we're targeting, so like the ones that were in town, Edric Houston was in town. You, of course, Nwaneri, who like we talked about, Ty, can go either or edge, or he can play in the middle. I think Stoney's definitely coming. The way Gerald McCoy, former first-round draft pick.
Well, and especially with the losses MSU has sustained on the recruiter front. Yes. Like, that was already going to be a real tough job for MSU to win out. I know they have a crystal ball in their favor, but like Jason just said, guys, it's smart.
It's early. And like you said, Ty.
Freaking March.
Well, if your name is in the running with a lot of these bigger schools, at a certain point, you're going to win some of those battles. Like, some battles you're going to end up winning. They're going to lean your direction. And in other battles, you won't win. And it's all because of who you're battling. If you're going against the Godfather, you're going against Saban.
When were you? We weren't in those. We were not in those homes and in those rooms before. That's the thing. Oklahoma was not in those rooms before.
Yeah, and we weren't competing with them 3 years ago with the old regime. Now we are. Now we're in there. We're walking. We're
That's right.
walking.
You got to get in the room
Clemson's
before you
staff.
can get them to come out with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're going in there with Clemson's staff in comparison to going in there with the old regime. And so I think that we'll start to see the teeter towards us winning, like Nigel Smith, another interior that I think that we're going to end up winning on the defensive tackle side. And, at 6'5", 260, he has the frame to get himself to 290.
Yeah, that's a real solid interior piece.
and I think he's basically sold coming here. And there's a few others that are warm towards us. I would love for us to get Zadavian Sims out of Durant at 6'3", 275. He's warming up towards us as well. Michigan State's also in the battle for him. So as long as we can just keep them out of our backyard and start to lock some of these up, we'll be fine. But this staff has been doing it. They're chasing them and they're doing it.
I think Michigan, I wish all the best for Michigan State. I want them to win because I think the Big Ten desperately needs some faces outside of Michigan and Ohio State. I mean, and I don't know about y'all. Penn State is kind of there. But like they wait.
If they don't do it this year, with what they have, I don't know when you're gonna.
Yeah, they're kind of a team that's waiting, right? I can't say that they're a good team. They're always a good team, but like we need them to be better.
At some point,
Franklin's
you need to go
consistent person. Yeah, Franklin's consistent. He's just not elite.
I don't believe in them. I think I have to look at their schedule to see if
they finally have a quarterback though.
If they don't have Ohio State. If they don't have Ohio State on the schedule, then that's fine. I just don't know. Like it's hard to. They're an inconsistent team. They start off hot, and then the middle of the season, they're just really sporadic as far as winning because it's kind of a toss up. And then they finish strong, and end up going to the Rose Bowl somehow. I mean, like it never fails.
But this is exactly why I want Michigan State to be good. So I wish more than anything I could say, hey, Michigan State, I think they're gonna make this a battle with Oklahoma for David Stone, for maybe Sims. But whenever you lose the heavyweight recruiters, Michigan State just lost for their edge and interior. That's guys, you're not Georgia. You're not you, the pejorative. You get what I mean. Michigan State is not Georgia. They're not Alabama. They do not have the capability to lose a Charles Kelly and then look at their recruiting staff and say, oh, we just lost the number one recruiter in the nation. Did you see who number 2, 3, and 4 were? Bama, Bama, Georgia. Michigan State doesn't have that luxury. So you lose 2 cats off that staff that are just top tier recruiters. First and foremost, you already needed a big season in the win-loss category to really sew up a David Stone, and now you don't have the dudes who you had the great relationships with. So,
I will say this right here. Speaking of that, let me piggyback off of that. I think OU, to really solidify what they're trying to do, they have to improve this year. I'm not saying go out there and win a Big 12 championship or a national championship, but you need to find yourself somewhere either falling on the plus side or the minus side of that Big 12 championship game, meaning that if you even fall a game or two short, at least everybody sees that you are trending in the right direction. And I mean, I think that's what OU fans really need. I think that's even me being sober-minded. You know how big of a fan I am, how big of a homer I am for OU. But the thing is that I'm trying to be sober-minded and think like, okay, well,
don't drink the Kool-Aid yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking, 8 or 9 games this year for us to win. That's huge for us as far as going forward. Do I think that we can win more? Hell yes, I do. But we need to see the product. And I'm not talking about against SMU, against Cincinnati. I'm not talking about
got a really favorable schedule.
Yeah, we got a really favorable schedule.
Real favorable.
They should win 9 games, man.
Let's put it on Texas. Let's right that ship, and then let's go from there. I mean, it's as simple as that. The benchmark game will be Texas this year, the 5th or 6th game of the year, to see exactly where we really are.
And this is going to be this should be a really solid Texas team. Should. Now I know replacing Bijan is tough. They don't grow Bijan Robinsons on trees, and I've debated with the gentleman.
They always have running backs.
Man, it's one thing to have a running back, but it's one thing to have a running back. It's another thing to have Bijan.
And the problem is, and Ty has said it plenty of times. I don't even want to go off on Texas tonight, but Ty, you said it plenty of times in the past.
I love the running back room.
I was going to say
we've debated it. But
you said it a few times. Pass protection wise, fine. They can get an A+, they can get an A-, however you want to throw it, B-, whatever. Run blocking, though, kind of subpar.
I think they'll be better this year, though. Like, I really do. Because, one, they're just going to be a year more into it. But 2, because God, Kyle Flood, man, he's such a good OL. He's such a good offensive line coach. Like, he really, really is. But here's what I mean, Jason. You're not wrong. because you're and I've debated with Chris. I love Brooks. I think he's going to shock college football. He's going to be a dude. Cedric Baxter is incredible. I have this in my film review of when I watched Texas versus Alabama, and I've said this quote a few times. So Jay, Chris, I apologize having to hear it again. There are some running backs you have to be aware of whenever they get the ball in their hands. And then there are other running backs, the second they step on the football field, somebody on your defense has to start accounting for them. And Bijan's the latter. The second he steps on that field, he's as dangerous without the ball as he is with the ball. And that's what I
thought
mean.
He was completely underutilized. I thought he was completely underutilized.
Yeah. That's why I say it'll be tough. The quality of running back they have is not in question. It's
Adrian Peterson rushed for 1,900 yards as a freshman. He was a guy that you had to pay attention to. Because
you're not comparing him to Adrian Peterson, are you?
No, I'm saying that Bijan's that type. You have to account for him on the field.
Come on, bro.
I've watched Bijan play. He's a first-round draft pick. Easy. I'm not going to pretend like he's not great. I think he
is great. He is great.
He's not Adrian Peterson, but he is, as Ty mentioned, he's a player you got to pay attention to. You got to know where he's at. It's no different than like how Oklahoma had to account for Barry Sanders back in the 80s. They wanted Thurman Thomas on the field more than they wanted Barry on the field because they knew what he was going to do. It's just realistic. I mean,
he's definitely a generational player. There's no doubt. And I was always saying that he was underutilized the entire year. It felt like he put a lot on Quinn Ewers' shoulders to not, when you've got Bijan and Roschon too. I mean,
it's not like they're just going to be missing one. They got both of them coming out.
And I think that hurts them just as bad, man. You know what I mean?
That's gonna be a thing. They're gonna have to get that running game situated, which I mean they believe that they'll be fine. You ask
with
Nick,
Sark, he's known for it. Look, it's funny. We always like fawn over some of his pass sets, but he sets it up with his run sets. Really, and it's kind of odd that he didn't utilize Bijan as much some games because that's kind of a bread and butter to Sark's scheme. He can get away from it with the fanciness. But
I think the problem was that you had Thunder and Lightning, and that was your combo because everything behind there wasn't really proven or tested. Keelan Robinson just has not. I mean, in my mind, he hasn't really panned out like a lot of people thought, being that super electric change of pace back that he possibly could have been. I mean, don't get me wrong, he got a lot of tick this year, which was surprising. But at the same time, you know who your bread and butter guys are. So if Bijan gets hurt, which contrary to a lot of people's belief, I'm not saying he was hurt an awful lot, but I'm saying he got hurt where he had to sit out games. He had the arm, collarbone, whatever it was, and then that Texas Tech play in his first season that he missed like a game or two with. I mean, the thing is, he took awkward hits. An awful lot. Bijan was known for that, in my opinion, for taking those awkward hits. So if you lost Bijan, then you were stuck with Roschon, which is not obviously a bad alternative. But then after that, running back room gets kind of thin.
When he came in as a quarterback, didn't he, Roschon?
Yeah, he was originally a quarterback. Yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah. So, and he was the one thing I'll say about Bijan is once he got an opening, you weren't going to catch him. Yeah. I mean, that was where it was probably similar to Adrian, was like where you would see things that AD would do that 19. How he didn't win the Heisman Trophy as a freshman. I guess that's just because it was before they did that crap. But because it was unbelievable.
Now this is a good question. I'm sorry, Jason, go ahead.
No, go. No, I'm good.
Kim says, Ty, what was Saban politicking for on the 3 permanent opponents when you play them every year anyway? I think that was the point, Kim.
I wanted you to ask that question.
I think that was his point, is I think he was like, okay, well, we already have our rival in Auburn that we play every year. We already play Tennessee as a historic rival every year. So what about giving us some new blood? Because we have to remember, this is the guy who petitioned for them to drop one of the non-con games and add another SEC game.
Yeah,
a few years ago, he was petitioning the SEC to drop one of the non-con games to add in another SEC game so that they wouldn't play a Kent State or a Citadel. It'd be another SEC game. So that was and I could be wrong there, Kim. I'm not saying this is fact because I really didn't get into it, but that's what I was reading into it as, is I think in his mind, he's like, well, Auburn should already be a permanent opponent because that's a rival. Tennessee should already be a permanent opponent. That's the most historic rivalry. So what about like giving us 3 other teams or 2 other teams in that point that we don't get as much, that the fans don't get as much? Maybe I'm wrong. That's how I interpreted it. But, maybe that's just what was y'all's thoughts on that? Because it just didn't make sense for him to say that when he's petitioned for so long for them to drop one of the non-con games. So that's why I thought that he has to be thinking
And he was talking to Pate last year about the 10 going to 10 now.
He's been petitioning. That's my only explanation, is that in his mind, he's like, well, Auburn and Tennessee should be automatic for us, and that we should have 2 other teams with LSU. And that's the only thing I can think.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to jump in here. I'll say, I was talking to my uncle this morning. He said, man, he said, hey, Jay had a great video, but I do kind of disagree, man. I think Missouri, that's a hot spot for us recruiting wise. We need to be there. He said Missouri and Florida. But then we started talking. He was like, well, he's like, I think we kind of want some new blood in there. We want to have like a rivalry or whatever, like start something new. And that just sprung so many thoughts in my mind. I was like, it's kind of surprising that they're not steering.
That's gonna breed a rivalry.
Yeah.
OU Florida, that's going to breed a rivalry in the SEC, and it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a recruiting war too, because I mean, we recruit. I mean, hell, even with the Lincoln Riley but Lincoln Riley coaching regime, they did pretty well down there in Florida as well. I mean, Mario Williams, Nick Bonito, I mean, Jaden Davis, guys like that. I mean, you've done well down there, and now with Todd Bates and Venables, I mean, they're definitely reaching out there. And Kari Vickers, we can name a few kids.
Oh, it's such a good addition. So, I say this every time you talk about Makari Vickers. That's such a good addition.
Dude, I think he's so underrated as one of the pickups.
But no, I mean that's kind of my point. Is just I'm wondering why they aren't starting anew with some things, because I feel like some like Texas and Texas A&M should play. That's a rivalry game. Sure. I think Texas, them forcing Arkansas on Texas, I think Arkansas wants that more than Texas does. You get what I'm saying? I think LSU would be more fitting to kind of start that back or try to start that up for Texas, but I don't know.
And I'm reading what Saban's saying right now. And one of the things, his point, of course, as you mentioned, Ty, they play Tennessee, they play Auburn every year regardless. And the balance, if you want to balance it out, that's where the LSU portion, I think, is the issue, because Georgia get a team like Kentucky as their permanent. And he's saying, they only did the analysis over a 10-year period. Why not do it historically for the SEC, and even including Oklahoma and Texas? It makes more sense to really take a holistic view, while at the same time give an opportunity, like you said, for new blood. Give us one team that is going to help if anything, give them an opportunity to travel other places that they can recruit at. So I'm feeling like that's kind of his point with that. We ain't gonna be able to go out really and go to a lot of big places to recruit. I mean, Louisiana, you got staying in state, and then you're traveling up to Tennessee. Why not, maybe Florida or something else. So I don't know. I think the Kentucky to Georgia piece is probably the thing that's really chapped his cheeks. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, it did. And me myself, I don't really. I don't know. There's a lot of things that when Saban gets to talking, I stop listening, because it always just seems to be a lot of it is he's always politicking, man. He's always politicking for what he's wanting. And I don't really want to hear him complain about his schedule, his 3. The thing is you're going to play everybody every other year anyway. That they're going to play Tennessee every year. They are, because they've been doing it for longer than any of us have been alive. Anybody watching this show has been alive. They're going to do
in
that.
October, baby.
It's always going to happen. They're always going to play Auburn. And then the LSU one, I mean, they've been playing them. That's the only thing I was like on that one was like,
Well, I think that's
mean,
his point. We already played
it's
them.
become,
Why don't we give
but
it
it's
some new
becoming a
blood?
big. I get that, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that part. But who's going to be the new blood? I mean, I don't know.
Florida?
In the end,
South
Mississippi
Carolina.
State's closest. Mississippi State's the closest. I guess that's probably one that can be in consideration. But I guess this is the question I have with this, Ty, and I'm curious to your thoughts. If they decide to pick 3 new schools for Alabama, will there still be enough scheduling wiggle room to guarantee that Tennessee and Auburn will be placed in there?
I think so, because
that's the point.
They're just such big rivalries. I mean, the Iron Bowl is one of the top 5 biggest games in college football every year. That's not going away.
They got
No,
it ranked
I agree.
At. I mean,
Yeah, that's not going away.
But I think that's why those are the permanent ones.
But that's why
Tennessee
Saban has.
either,
But that's why Saban has been petitioning for something not this 3 permanent fixture. That's why Saban has been petitioning for them just to do a straight SEC slate.
Which
Right.
I mean, I totally get that, but
Instead
you
of
have
instead of
16
doing
teams,
non-con
you're not going to
games,
be
you're
able to play
saying?
everybody. I think that's my
He's been
point.
petitioning for that.
Yeah, he's been petitioning for like a nine game schedule for a while because you got to have at least
Forever.
Well,
one
and now
non-con.
he was
You
talking
gotta
about
have a non-con.
this past season going into the season that with expansion that he was like, now I'm kind of moved on to 10, which I don't think that's really going to happen
That
probably.
makes sense.
But
To
if you
me,
listen to what he told Pate, he was saying,
that's what
where
he
I
just-
disagree with you, Jay, is when you say he's mad about LSU. His whole thing with Pate is, no, give us these teams. Give me those teams. He specifically said because it fills the stands, and that's what he puts at the top.
He did
is
say
making
that,
college
yeah.
football compelling. So for him, I think we're all looking at. I think he wants different teams. He already says, okay, we already have the rivalry with Auburn, compelling. We already have the rivalry with LSU, compelling.
Kinda like
We
to
already
still play
have Tennessee,
more.
compelling. Let's get some more compelling games in here. That's Saban's point. If and I could be wrong, but that's just my interpretation of it.
But and he also, this is also his quote. He says, let me read this exact quote for you all. They only did it over 10 years, Saban said, of the metric.
Right.
Now you've got name, image, and likeness, which changes that whole dynamic because it's who has the most money to pay players until they change the rules. I like playing more SEC games. I think it's good for the game and good for the fans. I think they have a better chance to get the parity right doing the 8 games. I'm talking about balance of who has who. So it sounds like
Wait, he went back to 8 games?
it sounds
on that?
like he wants 8 permanent opponents.
Okay. Oh.
So basically divisions. Keep the divisions the way they are and then mix in a opponent across.
I like the 366, man. I do. But
I
I mean,
like
because
the
and
3
here's the thing. I know
permanents
that
as
we
well.
huh?
I like the 3
3
permanents as well.
I'm
I do
indifferent.
too, because you're going to be everywhere. And here's the thing. This is the one thing that and I love the SEC, but I would like to see Georgia and Alabama playing more than in the regular season. You're going to catch them in the championship, but let's see. I mean, you get one of those games where we'll look at like last year when they did play them during the regular season, or no, they didn't. They played them in the championship, and then they played them in the conference championship, right? And that was the only 2 times. Had
Who
they
are we
played
talking about?
early, Georgia, Bama, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Conference
So,
championships when they see each other.
But what has it been like? I mean, they've played twice in like 8 years or something like that in the regular season or something like that. I mean, when we're talking about compelling, let's get there because obviously once Kirby went over there, it became compelling. And I mean, obviously he's got.
Well, he's
the
1
big
and
dog.
7. So it's he's 1 and 7 versus Saban.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know.
I mean,
Okay.
it makes me think about the LSU. Like I went to LSU,
So
Tennessee.
It's
last
compelling,
season.
but 1 and 7.
Right.
It's not
right.
like
Yeah,
he's even 50%.
I went to the LSU Tennessee game
I got
last
you.
year, and that was Tennessee's first time in
Attaboy.
Death Valley in like almost 10
Sound
years.
just like me with Texas. Sorry.
Well, no, it's just he's only won 1 out of 7 or 8. I mean,
But no, they've all been playoff games or championship games, though, right?
yeah,
Is it?
when the moments are the brightest.
They're
I'm not
it's the
bad
division
mouthing
piece.
Alabama
The
here,
division
Ty.
piece that gets it.
No, you said they're all championship games, and I'm saying, yeah, they play in big games.
I
Right.
think the
Okay.
I think the only thing is regular season why the only reason why I like the 3 is just the opportunity to really move everybody around within the conference.
Now,
And
Miko, how could this possibly be the case when Alabama already plays those 3 teams?
well, if you go to the 3 permanent, then you won't if you take those teams out. They'll just rotate around immediately.
No. His point, Miko's point is I believe those teams are going to be able to get under Alabama and make life more difficult, and that's what he's saying. That's why Saban didn't want those 3. He plays those 3 every year, anyways.
Yeah, he
that-
was gonna an old model.
Right.
Yeah, you've got Tennessee
Yeah,
and you got Auburn every year.
No, they're
whole
already
thing-
in it, right?
My whole thing is just how whatever model that they go with or however they situate this. I just don't want teams like South Carolina having to go 3 years without playing Georgia, stuff like that. Like that, those games should happen. I wish those games would happen more often.
But I don't think you get them as often with the 3 permanent.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think you get it with divisions either. You're going to
No,
get
but if we're saying how do you get it more
not get
often?
them as often?
Because you have
How do
so
you
much
not
of
get
the
it?
schedule already accounted for every single year. So you have less wiggle room. It's just simple numbers.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
My thoughts.
We play every other year for sure, at least though.
Yeah, but
Well,
I'm
no.
saying like if you already have 3 games of your schedule already fixed, you have less flexibility than if you had, let's say, 10 of 10 games where you can fill anywhere. You inevitably have more flexibility than 7 of 10.
Well, I think regardless on that, Ty, is that you're going to have 2 games for Alabama every year fixed on particular dates. They've always had it. Third Saturday in October, last game of the season. Those will never change.
Oh, sure,
So that flexibility wasn't there anyway.
But that's my point. Do you want flexibility or not? Because I agree with Chris. Because now, no. We're ping-ponging back and forth on arguments here. You get what I mean? Like we've said we want more flexibility, and then when I say let's get more flexibility, it's we newith had it. So what are we looking for at the end of this?
I think you're off with that. I don't think that's what we were saying that with the games that Alabama has. Let me get my thought right. With the games that Alabama had, those 2 games were fixed for the last 30 years. They've always been fixed. They're third Saturday in October. That's why it's called that game is called that in the last game of the season. So that flexibility is gone. Now, if you make those flexible, you remove Tennessee and you remove Auburn out of there and go completely flexible, then you lose out on the tradition. So the question is, do we want tradition or do we want flexibility?
No, I agree. I'm with you there.
Right,
but that's why all up until this, the whole point has not been tradition. It's been flexibility. And so I'm saying if we want flexibility, I've got your answer for flexibility.
Because my thoughts are, and I don't know, Ty, you just correct me if I'm wrong. But my assumption is that I think the SEC is going to make life hard on OU and Texas, at least that first year or two coming in. I think the schedule is going to be brutal. I mean, I can see
it's
us
having
fun.
Yeah,
I can see us having our permanent guys, but I can see us in Texas having to play at LSU, at Georgia, then at Auburn or something like that. You know, you would say those are cake games, but it's the SEC, right? But the thing is, and then you could see Georgia and Alabama not having to play each other for another 2 or 3 years on a regular season schedule. I mean, that's just me. So I'm really eager to see that aspect of it as far as how do they schedule Texas and OU. Newbies coming in, obviously they're going to come in with a lot of hype on themselves anyways. I mean, they're 2, like I always used to say, you have a winning brand and you have a paying brand. But either way, that's just where we're at. So, how are they going to schedule those 2 teams? I think that's more interesting in itself than even the conversation about this 3-team,
I don't think even with the 3 team, you're not going to get a break any year. You're not, because look at it. I mean, if you look at, say, okay, Alabama 1 year, Georgia the next. If they staggered it, God forbid they put them in the same year. But if they staggered it, you would still, if they were doing it like, say, okay, that first tier is obviously Bama, Georgia. Then you got LSU, Tennessee, probably Auburn, Florida. Then you've got like Ole Miss. Help me out here. South Carolina probably be the next in that group.
Yeah,
you think
South Carolina, Mississippi State.
Yeah, Mississippi
Kentucky,
State,
Ole Miss, teams
obviously
like that.
Arkansas.
Maybe kick in.
Yeah, but I mean, in neither of those years are you really going to get a break from this schedule because in whoever your top three are, but you're still every other year you're still going to have 2 or 3 just, and who's to say when they're going to show up too? I mean, you catch back-to-back road games in one of those or something like that or whatever. But I mean, I think you're right. I think you could see them getting a very tough schedule, and it's probably going to be that way every year. That's just the expectation level for an Oklahoma. I mean, and you got fans that are used to winning 5-6 championships in a row for the conference. That shit ain't going to happen, boys. It's just not going to happen. And the good news is that you can make the playoff without winning the conference championship if you can go in there and get,
Yeah,
no
I don't
more
see
than-
any SEC team just saying, okay, for the next 5 years, we've locked up the
Never.
SEC
No
is
way.
about to
No
be
way.
as good as it's ever been. It is about
I
to
agree.
be.
Mhm.
And I mean, you think about
So
South
brutal.
Carolina. Look how good they look
They're
right now.
good. They're good.
Yeah,
They're very good. No
The
doubt.
cream always
I don't think
rises
that
to
there's
the
really an
top.
off week, really. Huh? Cream always rises.
Cream
Yeah.
of the crop, it always rises. I mean, you're going to have your best recruiting classes are going to be the ones that are end up being at the top on a regular basis.
Sure.
And that's just kind of be
Sure.
what it is. And the question is how they execute. I guess my question I'm trying to figure out is what math wise, and Ty, as you made mention of the math piece of this, how do you make it to where you can get consistency as far as teams playing against each other over like a 3-year span, kind of like Chris was mentioning, like playing each other every like 3 years, having that set up. At least, how can you do that, especially with so many teams with like locked in dates for their games? Like OU Texas is always the second week of the Texas State Fair, third Saturday
You're
in October.
you're gonna have to do some dancing.
It's like, how do
Yeah.
you do it? It's going to be so tough. And I guess the 3 permanents was probably the only thing I thought that helped with that personally, because that those games those games have to be on the schedule and we have to play those teams. But then the third one it may be better to go down to 2, probably at that point, because it's really only 2. Let me see. Alabama has their 2. I think Georgia has their 2. Oklahoma has only 1. Oklahoma, Texas have 1. Well, now Texas has 2, and I know they're going to be pissed. When I saw who they had match up as their 3, I feel like they're going to be hot. They're not going to want that. They're going to be like, no, we're not playing Texas A&M. We actually don't ever want to play them except for when we randomly get them.
I didn't even say it.
So I don't know how that's going to work. But, yeah, I'm curious to what that's going to look like long term. So to get off that horse that we've been beating for like the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, there's some interesting comments I wanted to get to. Blue Collar says how many SEC teams could make it in the 12-team playoff? Well, 5 slots are already going to be spoken for your Power 5 champions, right? And one of those was going to be an SEC member, so you already have 1. I think you could get 3 to 4. Yeah, you could. You could.
I can see
because
4. I can see 4.
Yeah, you could.
I thought it was the top 6 conference champions by ranking.
Is it top 6?
I think it was. I think it was 2 group of 5.
Well, yeah, because it's
conferences. Their top
Was it?
2 basically gets in there too. I believe that's what it was.
I think what it'll. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
all
ask
you,
the
man.
group. Yeah.
So
go
what
ahead.
I was going to add to that is I think that you could. We say 3, 2, 4. I think you could legitimately say 4, simply because that 4th team, depending on how hot they are to end the season, if their strength of schedule is there, some of their losses
will
are gonna
be.
some of their losses are going to look way better
course.
than a lot of people's best wins.
Yep.
That's
And
right.
so that's where like a Clemson, it kind of hurts them playing in the ACC, because if Wake Forest and all the rest of those teams are having typical seasons where, not like they've had these past couple of years where North Carolina and Pitt and all the rest of them are having these magical seasons. If the ACC is down, it's going to be really hard for Clemson to go in there and say, yeah, we lost 1 game or we lost, 2 games, and now put us up
Gotta
against
win.
them. We won our conference championship. But you look at somebody like, let's say Auburn runs the table and goes 10-2. You know, you're going to look at them and say, okay, well, you lost by 1 point to Bama. You lost, and let's say they play Georgia in the same season. They're
They
up by
always
7.
play Georgia. That's the oldest. That's the oldest rivalry in the South.
Well, let's say that they lose by 3. I mean, you're kind of thinking to yourself, man, this is the hottest team. They started off 10-0 and lost those 2 games down the stretch. So it's gonna be a lot of questions, gonna be a lot of talk around that, and you're gonna ask. And obviously, Clemson wins their ACC championship. You put a lot of onus on that, but now with the SEC being even, I don't even know if you can say the SEC is going to improve with OU and Texas in there. That's crazy saying that, but
it'll improve.
I mean,
no conference adds OU in Texas and doesn't improve.
And I'm giving a terrible example of just kind of like the question saying somebody wins the ACC championship and you go 10-2 and have the same record as them, but it begs the question, especially when you look at the conference and the SEC bias that there obviously is.
Yeah.
You know what would be interesting is if they rotated that third team, if they did the 3-team, like you got 2 perms and then you just rotate a third team for like every 4 years or something where you have guaranteed back-to-backs or something. But
this is why I said I'm kind of indifferent, because I love that idea.
That point, I want to point out the question you asked. The college football playoff, the 12-teamer is set with the top 4 conference champions and then a combination of the top 6 at large bids and then the 2 highest ranked remaining conference champions. So if it's basically the Power 5 and then 1 more. So yeah, it's 6 total is what you got as far as conference champions go. So I want to make
sure.
Is
this going to be a Power 5 though after this whole Pac-12 deal? What's going to happen with that? Because the Pac-12 is about to fall
That's
down.
A great question. Great question.
They're not going to be a Power 5 conference.
That's where you're going to get wild. So Ty, back to your point on your indifference on the 3-teamer.
No, and when I say I'm indifferent, I genuinely mean indifferent. I don't mean where I don't like it. I mean I look at it and I say that's cool. But if they were just doing a traditional SEC scheduling, I'd look at it and go, that's cool. Right? It doesn't move me one way or another. And I think the reason I feel like that is I'm looking at this as an Alabama fan. I got those 3 games every year anyway. So this is just Alabama's. It does not move me 1 inch because this is Alabama football is normal for me. Now, I mean, for a Texas A&M and an come on, that's awesome. That's awesome. Oklahoma, Texas A&M and Arkansas, that's great. So I that's why I say I'm indifferent. I see the people who are just over the moon about it, so excited, and I'm I can understand that. I think it's just I'm a little bit jaded.
I don't like the Missouri for us, even though I understand it's probably really good for recruiting. I don't like Missouri for it. I just prefer not to play them like that. That's just me personally. I'm the only fan I think that believes that.
They suck.
I'd rather have Arkansas just because it's local, it's close. That would be a fun rivalry.
It's weird. A lot of Arkansas fans seem to not be feeling this way, though. You know what I mean? Well, from what I've noticed on some of on the video, I mean, the video that that I did with Coach Drew with Drew. We did that video on this, and I get comments every day still, 3 weeks later, but I tell you, all these Arkansas guys are like, nah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We'd rather play Texas. That's a real rivalry. Okay, fine. But I'll tell you something. And I started thinking about this we were talking about Florida. I love that idea. For recruiting. But number 2, if you're not, because you're going to have for sure Texas, and I would be fine with Texas A&M too, because it brings back the old conference rivalry type of stuff.
That'd be sick.
I'd be good with that. But I also don't mind that, because A&M's bitching. They're going to stay bitching about it. They don't want to play either Texas or Oklahoma. Right? I mean, they just don't.
I don't think they do.
On a yearly basis, they don't. So I mean, it's clear. But so I'm good with that. I'm also okay with the fact that so if we're gonna see Oklahoma playing somebody like Florida, I mean, especially with a high top, he likes to talk a lot of trash. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun with that. Yeah. So I'm good with that. And plus, like you guys were saying earlier, that helps you out with getting into the state of Florida for the recruiting. And, you get down there and you win a game in the swamp, they're going to know who you are. You know what I mean? So that's big.
But in fairness, and I will say this, I don't know that y'all needed to play Florida to be in the state of Florida. If you're a top recruiting institution, you're already in the state
No,
of
you're
Florida.
right.
If you're a
No, I agree.
top
I
10
think getting in
recruiting
the SEC
institution,
got them get them in the SEC, got them into Florida already.
I don't disagree with you there. And Brent Venables already having that understanding of
having a
because
pipeline. Yeah.
well, because him and that staff that he brought over, they already had a familiarity of the SEC schools. Let's be honest. Clemson and Miami recruit against SEC schools primarily. Like they go into it. So they recruit just like an SEC program, right? Like stylistically speaking. So whenever he jumped from Clemson to Oklahoma, took those coaches, they just opened up the Rolodex.
Yeah.
Span it open, said IMG, got it.
Let's go.
Let's go. We know them. Cool. Let's get it. So that I think there's multiple factors. Jason, you're 100% right. The move to the SEC absolutely helps. And I don't think it certainly helps. Don't get me wrong. Just being able to have that presence of, every year, no matter what, your parents will get to see you play against the state you grew up in. You know what I mean? Every other year, your parents can see you. They just drive down the street, watch you play. That's compelling. That absolutely is. But Oklahoma recruited well enough already. They were in the state of Florida.
Yeah, we've gotten about 4 per year. So,
but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they're going to the SEC though.
No, that was before.
That was want to play in the SEC.
That was Bob Stoops' era. That was Bob Stoops roughly about 4 years. They were. Yeah, that's Bob Stoops all the way through Lincoln Riley. We were getting Florida players. It was just
because Stoops had that set up because he coached in Florida at Florida.
Exactly.
For so long. Right.
So there's always been some sort of a pipeline in there. It's just it's going to get amplified to higher tier players now with this regime in comparison.
Yeah, and I really do believe this. F is for Fanatics and we were talking about this yesterday. We were really kind of diving into the parallels right now. Oh, man, he's fun, isn't he?
He's a trip, man.
Yeah. We were talking about the parallels between Florida and Oklahoma right now, and kind of how a lot of the fans from the outside looking in both thought Brent Venables and Billy Napier inherited a Ferrari. Well, what it was a Ferrari shell with a 1953 Chevy engine in it that barely runs. Both Dan Mullen and Lincoln Riley left those programs in less than ideal states, and the rest of college football is looking at Billy Napier and Brent Venables, and they're like, "Why are you struggling?" Well, it's like,
idiots like Colin Cowherd out there repeating crap like that all the time.
Yeah, that's why Oklahoma fans are sitting there and they're like, no, that's not fair. You hear the same thing from Florida fans where they're like, hey, that's not really fair. Like we were not in a good position when he took it. There is an interesting parallel between OU and Florida right now, which why it's going to be so interesting to see this year and to see y'all be permanent. I really think that's going to bloom a beautiful rivalry in the SEC. I'm very excited about that, I must admit. That's an instance, Jay, where I like the permanent. Right? There's an example of where I love the permanent because I think a rivalry will be born from that.
Because it'll build there because you're going to play them every year and there's going to be games. You know that Florida's going to put something together. I mean, whether it's with Billy or not, but they're going to do it at some point. Just like Oklahoma, same thing. If Oklahoma wasn't, recruiting or whatever, and maybe it didn't work out with Vin, at some point they're not okay with losing. So they're going to find somebody that's going to get it done. And you put two programs that have that much pride in, having won national titles and put Heisman winners and all this other stuff. Hey man, you're not okay with, and like the Swamp, it's not okay to lose there ever. You know what I mean? So that's, you go in there and you get a win or two, they're going to hate you right away. So that's, you know what I mean? I think it's going to be great. I
got a question on that as we talk about the parallels of Florida and Oklahoma. I went through the coaches or whatnot. How did Urban Meyer never win SEC Coach of the Year? 5 years there, never won it. 2 national championships, but he never won it. How?
I don't know. But man, there are years where I look at it and I'm like, how did Saban not win Coach of the Year? But
how many times has he won it? How many times has he won it?
Off the top of my head, I really don't know.
Let me look. I'm looking right now.
Seems like he wins it very often. I haven't heard of it.
They usually give it to the coach that's basically bringing up a team that's been
a
really,
corrupt
really
team or something.
bad.
Yeah, that they've switched it, they flipped it around or something.
5 times. He's a 5-time SEC Coach of the Year.
Okay.
03, 08, 09, 16, and 20.
That's fair. That's fair.
Those are
then
undefeated
never mind.
seasons, and then
I take back my statement. That's plenty. Yeah, never mind. I wipe my hands of that one. Y'all heard nothing. Y'all heard nothing.
His 2 undefeated seasons, he got the AP Coach of the Year as well. So that's, granted, that's just, in that space. But yeah.
Y'all heard nothing.
Makes sense. I didn't hear anything. Well, it's been deleted from the entire servers.
No, we're not live. There's not, you can't clip it. No.
Huh? What are you talking about?
No. This is
Who's Nick in here talking smack?
Well, here's something cool. You want to know about the parallels? High Top, when we had him on, he was on. I mean, we were, the Oklahoma Florida fan trash talk was going back and forth, and even F is for Fanatics. You get the Florida Oklahoma fan trash talk going back and forth. But both of those gentlemen both acknowledged one thing. Whenever Jason and I had asked High Top about, well, what do you think about Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC? He said the same thing F is for Fanatic said whenever Jay and I asked him. He said those are the only 2 programs outside of like a Clemson that you could have taken into the SEC that fit. Yep. Those programs fit the SEC, the SEC culture. So in that regard, hey, even the SEC fans that are, that are running their mouths, having their friendly trash talk, between fan bases, even they acknowledge the SEC absolutely slam dunked this, got it right. You got 2 amazing brands that are only going to make the SEC better. Oh, great move.
Yeah, there wasn't anybody else that could have added that would have been a better ad. No way. Yeah, they were right. They're right about that. And that's the one thing is the one thing the SEC fans talk a lot of trash, and that's okay. But they know football too. You know what I mean? It's not like
it's the same with Texas fans talking trash and Oklahoma. Your impassioned fan bases, they talk trash.
Sure.
Yeah. I've never met a fan base that was sane.
Oh, no.
And if you do, there's
a problem. There's a problem.
Yeah,
there's a problem. There's a problem. I've never met
Missouri. It's Missouri.
There you go. Yeah, it's Missouri.
And you never hear from them. Oh, man. That's funny. But that was just a random thought. I didn't understand how Urban Meyer in his 5 years there never won SEC. Because looking at the Florida coaches, like they've had some moments from Urban Meyer. I mean, you've had 2 coaches of the year in Muschamp and McElwain, and then the rest of it, you could see the fall off from McElwain down to Shannon to Mullen. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. So they've had a lot more trying to find themselves than I think Oklahoma had. We just had this 1 year, and I think we'll be fine after this, especially with the recruiting classes being as high as they are. I think we'll be fine long term with that, because I think that's the one thing that a lot of fans don't get. We thought last year was going to be better. We also didn't realize how big the turnover was on players until as the season was going on, and we talked about this. Tyler,
yeah, it's all that talk about.
Fanatic was. Brent Venables said it in the introductory conference that he's ripping this back to the studs. And I just, it's coach speak, they're going to just rebuild a new foundation, better culture. And I'm like, oh no, he for real meant that we're going to get rid of almost 80% of the players. That they got to start from scratch. This is a rebuild. This is not only that, but
rebuild. even just thinking about the quarterbacks, 2 5-star quarterbacks, the Heisman winner.
You lose game-changing quarterbacks who win games on their own. That's the difference between college players and the pros, is that you can have a quarterback that can win games by themselves. I mean,
although I'm still not the biggest Spencer Rattler fan, but I agree. He's still a 5-star, and he had a big arm.
Huge. And in Florida's defense, right? Everything y'all said about Oklahoma, 100% true. Now imagine, I want you all to, I know this is going to be crazy, right? Everybody on the panel, I want you to close your eyes, right? Pretend you're a Florida fan, right?
Ew.
Your head coach says, I'm not worried about recruiting right now. We'll worry about recruiting when the season is over. Every single person on this panel, your hearts would have stopped. You would have texted me instantly and been like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, he wouldn't have made it out of the press conference without getting fired, probably.
I could not. And look, y'all know I do have a bit of a soft spot for Dan Mullen. Schematically speaking, I do have a little bit of a soft spot for him, right? But you can't say that. I don't care if you're in the Pac-12. When one of the biggest parts of college football is recruiting, you can't say, I'm not worried about 60% of my job. What?
Yeah.
No other job field in the world would you not get fired. That's like being a firefighter, driving to the scene of the fire and then saying, no, I don't worry about the water. We worry about the water when the fire is done. What the hell are you talking about? You don't worry about the water. That was wild. Yeah, so there's some interesting parallels.
You know how I feel about Dan Mullen. You know how Jance feels about Dan Mullen as well. So
yeah, no, I know you're not fans. And you know me, I don't like him as a head coach. I like him if you can get him as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
even then,
you'd be stupid. I'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, you can't not recruit in college football. Oh, that was just wild.
Maybe
There's
he
no
was just
way.
having a bad day.
Would he have taken that crap from one of his coordinators or one of his coaches? You know what I mean? That was the stupidest thing he could have ever said. What a knucklehead.
You gotta love bad coaching. Sometimes unfortunately, you pick the wrong guy, and it happens.
Sometimes
I mean,
you pick the wrong guy.
Bama had the same situation the year before.
Multiple
Saban
times.
there, so
Multiple
it
times.
happens. I mean,
Multiple
Oklahoma's
times.
had it in the 90s. The 90s was our years of picking the wrong coaches. It happens.
Time after time, too. Oh,
The
that was a tough time.
2000s. The 2000s for Bama?
Yeah, it
was frustrating.
times.
Because it was like,
Shula,
okay, right.
The Shula years.
You get a little bit of hope and then just smack you right back down. And you get a little bit of hope and then
backhand.
And Saban came and, wasn't going to let me slap down again.
Whoa.
God. But no, there's guys, we've been going for an hour and almost 30 minutes and there's still a lot to talk about, but I think we're going to head out of here pretty soon. Y'all know the drill. Closing arguments. All the time, I like to give everybody on the panel an opportunity to kind of get a point out, maybe something they wanted to talk about tonight that we didn't get the opportunity to dive into. As we kind of round this out, we just go straight down the line. Jay, you know where to start.
Honestly, I ain't got nothing. This was great. This was the conversation I enjoyed. I do only like the Alabama LSU piece as a permanent opponent just because of the Nick Saban ties. I think that's fun because
I think
they still adore him down there, even with because they understood you go to the NFL if you got the opportunity, and I still want to punch the Miami Dolphins medical staff for ruining college football. Just all I want to say. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's all their fault. I don't blame anybody but them. It's their fault.
Good. We'll let the people know where they can find you.
You can find me Unfair Sports. Just search for me on YouTube. I'm there. You can follow me on Twitter at Unfair Sports. I'm always there. I'm gonna get a lot more active on the show Twitter account and start throwing that content for you all. So thanks for, of course, having me as usual. Ty, I gotta get more collaboration with you more often.
Absolutely, man. You already know. You just hit me up.
Yep.
Jason, what are you thinking, man?
I was going to ask you guys what you thought about. I'd done that video last week talking about what's going on with the ACC, and it was after we had my live show on Tuesday, talking about the ACC with Clemson, Florida State. My thought is this on that one is that right now, I mean, if we're talking about they can't get out, maybe they can, maybe they can't. I mean, nobody was supposed to get out early. Texas, Oklahoma. Now, obviously, you're talking about 1 year versus 13. But hear me out on something. What is I feel like there's no way that if you have them for 13 more years, why in the world would you just let them flounder? Why not find a way to pay those, even Carolina, you can throw Carolina in it too, but you need to pay these guys and get them closer to that number where the SEC and the Big Ten's going to be at. Because we're talking about brands, and I don't think anybody wants. I mean, I think everything that's been going on with the Pac-12, and we've talked about this, that they're definitely going to. To me, I don't see a way that they survive this. But if we're going to completely just be okay with all these, this much change in college football to where it's just two conferences that matter, I think there's something wrong with that. And when you're talking about FSU and Clemson and even, Miami, for instance, I think college football is better when those teams are good. They're going to fall so far behind if they don't do this. And why wouldn't ESPN not pump that money up there and, at least get them within 10 or 15 million, you know what I mean? Not 30. And what are your thoughts on that? I don't know. That's just something I was, I've been kicking it around a lot.
To be 100% honest with you, man, I don't know enough about this ACC contract structure to be able to comfortably I really need to dive into it.
It's less about the contract and them getting out of it. I'm not talking about them getting out of it. I'm saying that wouldn't it behoove you as ESPN to, keep your cash cows in that conference when you're getting it on the cheap too, by the way, to bump them up. Don't take away from the rest of the teams in the league, but bump up your guys that are bringing all the eyeballs every week, right? And
unless
make sure
they
that they
could
can
bump it up even more in the SEC. That's the only thing I could think, is that they think it could exponentially increase.
Right, but my thought is this though: what is it if you've got a spot for the ACC champion and you've got a spot for the Big 12 champion, and then you get 3 or 4 of them from the SEC, if you take away those teams out of the ACC, then all of a sudden, what are they?
No, I completely agree with you. And the only thing I can say right here is I'm just grasping for playing devil's advocate right now. And the only thing I can think is that ESPN looks at the situation and says, hey, maybe they make it to the championship, but we know if we sent them to the SEC, we're going to exponentially increase the revenue from these teams and by extension, the SEC. But at that point, I just don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know. It
seems to be it would be cheaper to freaking give them a little bit more money, even if it's 15 million more each, and they're within that 10 or 15 million range, right?
Well,
if they're getting that
solely
money,
negotiate that based on those two teams, or would that have to be across the board to every team in the ACC?
I don't think so. I think that somebody would obviously have to make a decision. I don't know exactly what their voting structure's like or whatever. All I'm saying is that I can't imagine that you would have a contract with a conference for the next 13 years and you're going to watch it go to court and lose all this money that way, instead of just coughing up 15 extra or doing whatever you got to do to keep it competitive. You're really going to kill brands like that?
No, you kill the ACC. You kill the ACC and tell them to get.
How are you killing an ACC, though, if they can't get out of the damn deal, Chris? That's the whole thing. And everybody keeps saying they can't get out of it.
Because it's a waiting game.
You're killing those brands.
Well, think about it. It's just a game of leverage, man. ESPN has all the leverage in the world. They have all the time in the world just to wait. It's like suing an insurance. It's like suing like an insurance company. They have all the money just to sit there and play around with you. Like they don't have to make a move. You make the move.
No doubt, Crunch. I don't disagree with you, but there is also something to you're not wrong. You did sign the contract, and I think Chris and I will tell you.
I agree with that.
I think Chris and I will probably tell you, and no doubt, Jason, we're proponents of you have the cognizance to sign the contract. You're there. Here's what I will say.
And I'm not a fan of FSU or freaking Clemson for that matter, even. It's not even about that. It's more about what we're seeing in college football. I don't know that it's definitely the right thing to do.
No, for sure. But what I will say, Crunch, is this. A lot changes quickly whenever we're talking about media rights deals and 5 years. You think about where the way we digest media has gone in the past 5 years. So I do agree with you, Crunch. You did sign the contract. You got to play it out. But we also have to have this understanding that the way we digest media has changed exponentially in 5 years, and it's going to change even more in 5 years. So yeah. I do understand the position of being like, hey, this contract is already outdated, because it kind of is. They're in a really interesting spot. This is something we could go down the rabbit hole in. So before we do that, Chris, any last points, or where can the people find all your great content?
Okay, a couple of things. Just want to iron this out. Okay, so first off, Anthony Richardson will be the number 1 pick in the draft. Okay.
Woo!
Second off,
Woo!
this
Take
whole
that.
big this whole Big 12 expansion. Oh,
He's
hold on. Let
definitely
me
a stud.
refresh. I'm not saying he's gonna be a Hall of Famer, number 1 pick in the draft.
He's a stud.
Okay,
He's
cool.
a stud.
Second thing is that this Big 12 expansion, I think this is an interesting point that we all need to talk about.
Yeah.
They're trying to conquer the Great West, right? The Wild Wild West. So but I'm gonna say something that Ty says, his phrase. You need to put this on a shirt. Arizona State, and Colorado. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this because I need to see what Colorado is gonna do this year. They don't move the needle. They help you.
I agree with you in two.
Yeah.
But media-wise, I think Colorado moves the needle.
Colorado does. They can. I just want to see. I want to see that.
You want to see the results. I understand that. I understand.
I want to see the results.
Sure.
And then last thing, you already know. What are we doing, man? You know what I'm saying?
We just mute the mic. We just mute the
He
mic.
just does that.
That
he does that to you every week, doesn't he?
He does that to me
Well,
all the time.
That's what, like, that's 21 consecutive shows that it's been on there. Either way, it's
21.
It's
See, if you got a streak going, I can't blame you, bro.
It's a streak
We
now.
just got to make sure we do this though too.
No, I was about to get to that. So, hey, you guys can find me at the Horns Down Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Check us out. New content coming soon. Definitely gonna have Jason on. Try to have Ty on as well. You already know. Like, subscribe, and share this video for sure. Because we're trying to. Ty, how many subscribers you got now?
Just shy of 19,000.
Let's get it. Come on, people. Let's go.
Yeah. And in May, it'll be 2 years of doing YouTube. So I'd really like to hit 20,000 within 2 years. That'd be sick.
That is sick, man.
That'd be sick.
That's so awesome, dude. I mean, I thought I was doing well. I thought I was doing well.
Understand, man. I've bashed my head against a wall. I've released close to 1,000 videos. Like I have had days where I've released 6 videos.
I'm at
in a
238 now, and I've been 8 months.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey, man. It's been a crazy journey.
Man.
But
it's
Jason,
fun, though, isn't it?
Where can the people find all your great content?
At CFB podcast on YouTube. Also at Birdie Man Dub. I'm always on Twitter, so you guys hit me up there. And I've got a couple of videos out right now there on the YouTube channel. One of them, I've dove a lot into this realignment expansion stuff. A lot of people are in there talking. It's actually been one of my better. It's some of the stuff that I'm getting a lot of it for. But so folks, get over there and check it out. I did one this morning that was mostly centered around what was left. If the Pac-12 is dead, then what does college football look like, the landscape by 2031, whenever these deals start renewing again. So check that one out and let me know what you think on it. And I mean, hey, we're always make sure that you hit the like, subscribe. We got to get him to 20,000, man. That's awesome. What a number. So, and thanks for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for coming on.
I'm almost to 1,500. So if you guys could help me out with that. So,
Hey, I'm not going to lie to you. That period is the hardest. Genuinely. Yeah. That period is the hardest. And then once you pick up steam, it kind of, I think once you hit about 25,000, it almost starts taking care of itself. And then it just kind of snowballs. So we're just trying to get it there. And Anthony, I see this comment right here. We're about to exit, but I will say this right here. We're going to open up the next stream on this comment right here, and I'm going to quickly answer it. It depends on what you consider successful, right? Because my definition of success for Colorado is not relegated to a win and loss total year one. They need to improve. They need to look like a better football team.
5 wins, so yeah.
No doubt. Yeah, right. See, and this is the thing. If they come out and they get 5-6 wins, I know there are going to be people out there that say, "Oh, see, he didn't get it done." They were 1-11. I get it's a new team. They were 1-11, though. You know what I mean?
But
this is
here's the
real
thing. Here's
rebuild.
why I wouldn't be surprised if they did better than that, though. Ty, they've added over 40 freaking players.
Yeah, they've done great there, no doubt. But
number one transfer portals. I mean, obviously, you got to make those guys gel together. So we got to see.
Got to make them gel. Sure.
But I wouldn't be that surprised if they won 8 games. Even 9. The Pac-12 is not that good.
It's not, but I'm only setting the stage to say if they win 5 to 6 games, we also have
It's
to
not a
remember this was a
failure.
1-11 program, man.
Absolutely.
So there's a deeper
And you got to
conversation to be
reteach
had here.
everybody's stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Anthony, we're gonna open up with this on the next stream. I'll post about it. Make sure the times are all out there. That way you can be in here, and even if you come in late,
Check us
you
out
already know
tomorrow.
what
We'll
it
be
is,
on my
man.
stream. We can talk about it too. So
Awesome, man. Awesome. And Anthony, you already know if you come in late, you hit the comment. We'll revisit the issue. But until next time, y'all take it easy. We'll see you. Spinning Wheel of Doom and coming in.